confident that he cares. What do you care about? Welcome to the Rock Newman Show. It's the Rock Newman Show.
Join our tribe here. We are a tribe. This is a place where racial and cultural connections are consciously uplifted, a place where art, culture, and politics intentionally collide. This is a space to take a deliberate pause and feed your mind, body, and soul. We believe by creating such a space, we can actually change our community, change DC, and change the world for the better. And now, the Rock Newman Show.
Welcome back to the second hour of the Rock Newman Show. Today, Saturday, July the 13th, 2013. We are broadcasting live and in high definition, living color, from Busboys and Poets. We just keep moving on up, and we thank you for tuning in. We thank the audience we have here at Busboys and Poets, and we certainly thank our next very, very special guest, Miss Nikki Giovanni. Welcome to the Rock Newman Show. Thank you so much for coming. Before we get into talking to Nikki, and we are so blessed to have her for the next 2 hours, and I just feel all warm and fuzzy about that. Before we get into that, Mayor Gray, who's the guest in our first hour today, has a little something special that he would like to share with Nikki Giovanni and the world.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I feel warm and fuzzy about being here with Nikki Giovanni. She is somebody who has been known to millions and millions of people around the world, and to be able to sit to her left, what an incredible honor that is. And thank you for what you have done in such profound ways for so many people over all these years. And I know a little bit about your history also. I think it was Cincinnati, Ohio, Knoxville, Tennessee, Fisk University, having done all of those things. And we couldn't let you come to our city and not recognize the esteem within which we hold you. So I want to present you on behalf of my office, on behalf of the District of Columbia, a proclamation.
Listen up, y'all.
There are lots of whereases. Can I read a couple of them?
Please do.
Whereas Nikki Giovanni will be the guest speaker on the Rock Newman show for 2 hours today. Whereas Nikki Giovanni is recognized as a talented poet, writer, commentator, activist, and educator, and all of those good things. And has established herself as a poetic voice of the African-American community. And whereas throughout her career, Nikki Giovanni has received numerous awards and honors for her publishing, including her autobiography, Gemini, Black Judgment, Creation, Love Poems, Blues, For All the Changes, Quilting the Black-Eyed Pea, and her children's picture book about Rosa Parks. That's incredible.
Thank you.
That was #3 on the New York Times bestseller list. And whereas Nikki Giovanni's poetry has influenced many generations, and today we are honored to recognize her for her accomplishments. Now, therefore, I, the mayor of the District of Columbia, get something to do that is uniquely reserved for the mayor of the District of Columbia. And this day, July 13th, Saturday, July 13th, 2013, and you are the only person for whom this will be done. This has been declared Nikki Giovanni Day in the District of Columbia.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nikki says thank you. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back at the Rock Newman Show. Ready? Welcome back to the Rock Newman Show. How special, Mayor Gray. He actually pulled even a surprise on me. I was expecting a proclamation, and there was a proclamation. It was proclaiming Saturday, July the 13th, 2013, Nikki Giovanni Day. Congratulations, and God bless you. Okay, now, we've got another little surprise for you. I spoke earlier about the visionary, about the founder, about the architect, about the leader of this incredible story called Busboys and Poets. It is a place, it is a mission, and it is a tribe. It is a collection of people that is referred to as a tribe, that one person at a time is trying to change the world for the better, one day at a time. Its leader is Andy Shalal. Right. And when I told Andy that I had reached out and that you had agreed to come here, he shared a story with me, and I think that I knew when he shared that story that I wanted the live audience here and the listening audience and the viewing audience around the world to hear that story, because I think it is a story that is quintessentially Nikki Giovanni. Andy Shalal.
Thank you so much, Rock. Thank you, and welcome, Nikki Giovanni. I'm really excited to have you here once again at Busboys and Poets, and I would like to proclaim you as a member of our tribe as of Saturday, July 13th, 2013.
Thank you.
It's really wonderful having you. When Rock told me that you were coming here, I said, oh, she's one of our favorite of all times. You have been here to Busboys and Poets twice before, and we've had the largest turnouts of any author or poet that we've had in this location, and in any of our locations, actually. But the last time that you were here, if you recall, was in February, I believe 2010, if I'm not mistaken. And it was a snowy day. You recall that. And I get a phone call from, I think, somewhere in North Carolina. You were on your way to catch a flight to head here. And because you live in Blacksburg, and that's the closest, major airport to be able to get here. And when you found out that your flight was canceled, because we thought it's a snowy day, we're probably not going to have the event. We were really disappointed. But when you found out that your flight is canceled, you rented a car and drove yourself all the way up here, about an 8-hour car trip, and stayed in touch with us the whole way to let us know where you were. You called me when you were turning the corner on I-66. You had just turned and you said, it seems okay, the streets don't seem that bad, I'm on my way. And I'm thinking, wow, this is my girl. And you made it. The event was starting at 6. The place was already packed. We were all waiting. And I thought for sure you're going to be at least late, at the very least late. You show up at 6:15 and be able to get on that stage and start the event right on time. Wow. That's our Nikki Giovanni. And also, your book, your children's book about Rosa Parks, may be the New York Times 3rd bestseller. It's the first bestseller at Busboys and Poets. At all of our bookstores carry your book, and it's the best-selling book in all of our bookstores. So I just want to let you know that. Thank you so much for being a part of our lives, for being a part of our tribe, and for being here today. I'm so delighted to have you here.
I'm thrilled. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nikki.
Yeah. I remember that very well because it was snowing, and I'm a Midwesterner, so I'm used to snow.
Sure.
And I could see that airplanes lie, the flights, they lie. And so I knew that this flight is not going. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, well, it's D.C. I absolutely love D.C.
And D.C. absolutely loves you.
And it never occurred to me that I couldn't make it. And so I just got on the road and, sang some old rhythm and blues songs, kept myself awake.
And I think what's so special about that is people who have done what you've done, been where you've been, achieved what you've achieved. Oftentimes there is the assumption of entitlement. Oftentimes there's the assumption of arrogance, and it just shows a humanity and a concern for your audience that is just so admirable. And I'm gonna say it a whole bunch of more times through the course of this show. We love you.
Guys.
So that I want to kind of treat this, as famous as you are, as well known as you are around the world, I want to kind of treat it in the beginning as if folks don't necessarily know who you are or from whence you come. So I'd like to start. He mentioned Cincinnati. You were born in Knoxville. Born in Knoxville.
Tennessean by birth.
Reared in
Cincinnati.
Reared in Cincinnati. I want to go back. I've done this with a few guests. I've shared my experience. Your first memory as a child.
You got to be kidding. I don't know. Let me go forward.
Okay.
Okay, because that's what I do.
Yeah.
When I was in the 5th grade, I met a woman whom I totally love. Sister out there, she's a nun, an Episcopal nun. And now that my mom and my sister have passed, she is the person, I met her, I was 10 years old. She is the person I have known the longest on earth.
Okay.
She had cancer a couple of years ago. She was diagnosed with cancer. And her good friend, Sister Monica, said that she had maybe just didn't want to continue. And so she needed something to hold on to, but she had always had a small dream.
Yeah.
And that was that Lincoln Heights, which is the neighborhood that I grew up. Lincoln Heights is like Southeast, just so D.C. will know what it's, you know. And so she always wanted to have a plaque put up where I was attending school there.
Yeah.
And so she did. Last week, we went. She is alive. She's doing well. But she got the governor and the state of Ohio to put a plaque up for me.
How special is that?
Is that special?
How very special is that?
I'm so thrilled. I actually brought that to you. She had it made up, and then she made up the invitation.
Oh, that is so
nice?
So very special. So
and it
very
just
special.
it gave her something to do. So that's not my first memory. I'm actually I have a new book coming out, and it's called Chasing Utopia. And Utopia, for most of you probably know, is a beer. Utopia is a Sam Adams beer. It comes out every other year. Okay. I don't drink beer, but I totally miss my mother. And you know, your mom dies, and then my sister died 6 weeks later, so it was just like, it was really bad. My aunt died.
Sure.
And so it was just a sad period. And I wrote a book called Acolytes, which I love. And I was mourning through Acolytes. I really think that's fair to say. And then I thought, well, do something to cheer yourself up. And so I wrote a book called Bicycles, because it's love poems. You know, you get the wheel. And so that was fun. But you still, and some of you have lost, we were talking about loss today, but there's still this loss. And so I'm trying to figure out if I can say it like that, my relationship to my mother. And in missing Mommy, the first thing that comes to mind, because every day of her life, I knew she was dying the day she said she didn't want a beer. It was like, do you want a beer? She said, no, I thought my mom's dying.
Oh, something's wrong. You know something's wrong.
Something's wrong. And she actually did die. I mean, that was what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I said to myself, okay, don't be a snob, right? And Mommy was a beer drinker, so what's the best beer in the world, right? So I looked it up. The best beer in the world is Utopia, right? And so I thought, okay, I knew I couldn't go to Kroger's and get a Utopia, but I said to myself, well, I'll go to a specialty shop. And they're like, Nikki, you know, we don't even get Utopia. And so I went to another specialty shop in California that has everything. They don't get it, right? And so I was on a show like I am with you, and I was saying, you know, God, I can't get a Utopia. Well, one of the people listening is a guy who makes it for Sam Adams. So he sent me a Utopia, right? So that's what started the book, Chasing Utopia, which I have not drunk because the book won't be out until October. And so as soon as I get the book, I'm inviting, I've been laughing. I have a friend who says she has 20 friends, and I keep trying to explain to her, nobody has 20 friends. I don't give a damn who you are. Excuse me.
Yeah, come on with it.
Nobody does, you know. But I'm going to have the 2 friends that I have, and maybe a third person will invite Gina just because we like her.
Hold on. I need to alert my technical team here, my production crew. We ain't going to break. We ain't going into this next break. We're going to keep on going. All right? The 10-16 break, we're going to keep on rolling.
Okay.
All right.
I'm sorry, because I didn't.
Okay.
But I'm going to have my friends over, and I'm going to, of course, I'm black, so I'm going to have a ham. You know, you got to have pork. I mean, I know that people don't, but I don't understand.
You going to have a ham sandwich?
I know. I'm going to put like a 5-pound on my rotisserie.
Yeah.
And it's going to rotisserie around. And we're going to eat that and drink the Utopia.
How special is that? How special is it? Okay, I heard late night, getting ready to get out of my car and going to my home in Las Vegas. and I heard this interview with Sonia Sanchez. And it was a riveting interview. I could not get out of the car. And I mean, I caught it as it was just coming on. It was an hour broadcast. I sat in my car the entire hour. I so remember her talking about how she got to poetry. And part of it was that she had a sister that her mother and her grandmother and her aunts used to always refer to as, this is the prettiest little girl that anybody ever saw. And then for Sonia, when Sonia came in the room, they said, and she's the smart one. And so that gave her a complex as a child, as one might think it would. The sister's always the pretty one, and I'm just the smart one. And she related that as to how she sort of went into herself and then expressed herself through the written and the spoken word. That's how she discovered poetry. How did Nikki Giovanni discover poetry?
Well, I don't think that just ever goes with smart. So I think if you're smart, it's not just smart. So I had enough sense to know. I had a pretty sister, too, by the way. I'm the baby in the family. My sister Gary had dimples, good skin, I mean, all those things. But I also knew that I was
Can I tell you
smart.
something? Hold on. Let's stop for a second. You're talking about the pretty sister. I saw you in 1972. My wife is watching. She knows and she understands. I had a crush on you ever since then.
That's lovely.
And I told her I might take a certain risk to try to kiss you or something. She said, well, maybe you need to behave yourself, so maybe I'll behave until the cameras go off.
I like kisses.
You like kisses?
I like kisses.
Do you love to kiss? Yes! Hallelujah!
Yeah. I don't know, you know, and again, Rock, wherever this next book is going, not Utopia, because Utopia is finished and I understand what I was doing there, but wherever this book that I am now chasing, because you asked me about my first memory.
Yeah.
And I keep going back. My first memory, and I haven't figured out how to write about it, was my great-grandmother, whom we called Mama Dear, was on the ceiling, and I was in bed crying because my parents fought a lot. They didn't fight. He hit my mother.
Yeah.
And so you're hearing that. You're hearing your parents fight.
Yeah.
And it was my great-grandmother said, never mind. Now, my mother says my mother's gone, so you can see what kind of world I live in. But my mother says, I don't remember Mama Dear because I was only 3 when she died.
Right.
I will swear.
Yeah.
I laughed about it.
You said she was on the ceiling.
She was on the ceiling because I was in bed crying. So I was looking up, and Mama Dear was Mama Dear was saying, never
grandmother,
mind.
and she was already passed?
She's my great-grandma. Oh,
she
yes,
had already passed.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So this wasn't an out-of-body experience.
I don't think so. I just think that she wanted me to know it's going to be all right.
Hello.
And so I've been trying to find a way to share that because I'm not the only little girl whose parents fought.
Yeah.
Who needs to know it's going to be all right.
Okay. Right.
And so as a writer, I think the thing that I like about my career is that I no longer have to worry about it. When I had my son, you have to feed somebody.
Right.
And after my dad died, I lived with my mom, so I had responsibilities. You buy him a house, they need a car, all of. And now I'm free. He's 40, he'll be 44 years old next month. So if he can't take care of himself, to hell with him.
Listen up, cheering.
It's not a problem. But now I can delve into things that I know I have somehow access information to. I'm not making sense. I can take steps. I don't have to worry about how people look at me. Most people figure, either they know something about me or they don't. I'm not, fame is, what's her name, Angelina Jolie. I'm just a writer. And so my job is to find a way to get said that which nobody wants to get said. because I'm not angry. You know, if I was trying to write the book I'm engaging in right now, 20 years ago even, I was still upset. But now I'm interested, to use a Toni Morrison word.
Yeah.
And of course, she's a great writer, but it's that interest. And you're trying to think, what do I know that I haven't been free to articulate? I don't know if I'm making sense.
So let me ask.
Yeah.
So let me ask, because I'm just so absolutely fascinated by you and fascinated with life itself. We all have a first love. And when I'm talking about first love, you know, I'm not talking about my first love of baseball or something like that. I'm talking about that thing that makes your heart go like sick and you can't eat and you just think about this person and whatever love is. And I want to ask you at some point, what is love? But now what I'm going to ask you is your first love. You remember your first love? And how did it make you feel? I'm talking about you looked at somebody.
I don't remember my last love. You mean? Well, I think, and again, I haven't worked it out in my head. You're asking an interesting question, and it's going to come up probably in the new book again. I think that one of the reasons parents shouldn't argue and fight, and men shouldn't hit women, and women shouldn't curse at men, and all of that, is that it affects your children in another way. So no matter what, I mean, you know, there's always the genes are going to run, but in terms of love, I think that it's very difficult to commit to love.
For you?
For anybody. That, I mean, if you spend your first 15 years, you have to realize I lived with my parents, and then I left. I went to live with my grandparents because it was either I was going to kill him or I was going to leave.
The guy that
my father.
Oh, your dad. Okay.
It's my father.
Okay.
It's my biological father. I know I'm kin to him. I laugh
Right.
all the time because I know my mother went to heaven, but I know my father went to hell, and I know that I'm following him. So he and I have things to discuss, and then we're going to get a day pass and go to heaven and talk to mommy about it. But and again, this is just so you're not going for somebody like me. I'm not going to ever commit. So in terms of what I love is a decision. And that's not what you're asking about. You're asking about sex. Because love is a decision. You make a decision.
Yeah, and my follow-up was going to be, and what is love?
Well, I think love is a decision that you, as a mature person, you decide, I can live my life with this person or with these people or in this way. That's a decision. That's very different from, oh, my God, look at that. And so I wrote oh, my God, look at that. I've written poems about that because, you know, you're just like, whoa. And of course,
yeah,
I mean, come on.
Of course.
And that's incredible. And I've lived in a world that interesting things get thrown at you. And a lot of times you don't say no. So sometimes you do, but a lot of times you don't.
And when you don't say no, you have a lot of fun?
It's interesting,
Yeah.
sure. It is. As long as everybody understands where we are.
Yeah.
And so that's what's important. But I'm an artist.
Yeah.
And I think that artists, I think that we have more fun than accountants, for example. I do.
Right.
And I think it's good. I just turned 70, and I'm really enjoying. I did. I'm really enjoying it. Anybody in there who's like 40, you know what I'm saying? The 50s are great, but you have to be careful with yourself because that's, actuarially speaking, that's where diseases and things get you. You have strokes and things like that. But if you can get through the 60s, through the 50s, your 60s are just going to open up. But I'm loving. I've been 70 now for, it's great, isn't it?
It's
great.
I asked you about love, and you say it's a choice.
It's a decision.
And then a decision. And you said that we wasn't talking about sex. Are human beings by nature monogamous?
I don't think so. But I don't think monogamy has. What is called fidelity has nothing to do with relationships.
Explain, please.
I don't know if I can. I mean,
but they want to know. They want to know about that.
But they know what they're doing.
But there's a whole lot of lies being told.
But they probably shouldn't be. But there also is no need for confession. Confession is not good for the soul. Deny it.
So your answer would be, because I remember a Time magazine cover, and the Time magazine cover said, the human being, by nature, monogamous or polygamous. And then it went on to make an argument for each. But I said Time, it might have been Newsweek or one of the others. But at the end of the day, it talked about the animal species and how there was, I forget which one was supposedly the only monogamous one. But I wanted to ask Nikki Giovanni, because I just love you, and I live on your every word.
No, none of that. Life changes so much.
Yeah.
If we were talking 50 years ago, I'd be in my 20s.
Right.
And my whole view of what I would be interested in is really different from now and what I'm interested in.
How so?
I just think it's growing older, and I think it's also knowing that many things don't matter. And I think that the joy of maybe my 50s on, maybe somewhere in there, that you realize that other people don't matter. That the choice to not have other relationships is based not because you're trying to be faithful or anything. It's just you have what you want. Uh-huh. To me, I guess love, or we're talking sex though, but I think sex is like it's like a meal. Mm-hmm. At some point you say, I'm full. Uh-huh. And so you've done it, and it's like, okay, but now I'm happy because I'm with the person that I can talk to.
Right.
Because you can't always talk to the people you're having great sex with.
Right.
Well, that's true. You know.
Nikki Giovanni, on her left arm, has a tattoo that says Thug Life.
Yeah. I do. I do.
Tell us about that.
I was distressed when Tupac died.
Yeah.
And he was a great kid. I mean, there's just I never met Tupac, but when he was with Digital Underground, they gave me a shout out, and I thought that was the coolest thing. And it was. And my son thought it was the coolest thing, like, hey, now,
Yeah.
So that was like, I'm the coolest mother on the block. And I followed his career. He was an incredibly talented young man, but also a committed young man. And you worry about committed young men because we're in America, and committed young black men tend to get killed. Yeah. And that's was going to happen here, and it was really sad. I remember when Tupac was shot, and then, he went to prison, and he's out, and so he's now in Vegas, and you just worried. Then I heard that he was shot again. It was like, oh no, he's not shot. This is just going to be a bad ending. And I think that he was in the hospital for like 4 to 5 days before they finally had to say that he was dead. But I was depressed. I seldom get depressed.
Yeah.
And I was just depressed. And when they finally came across the news that Tupac was dead, it was just one of those, I needed to do something. And I was talking to my mother, who, of course, being way older and not understanding hip-hop, just out of that. My mother's a jazz fan. And so she was saying, well, the guy seemed to be a bad actor. And I remember saying, I said, but Mama, he's only 2 years older than Thomas, than my son.
Right.
I said, this could be
right.
your grandson. And so we were trying to make sense. And I was hearing other people that I don't want to name any names on this one, who were making bad statements about Tupac, that they should either learn something or shut up. Mm-hmm. And so I thought I needed to do what I could do. And I'm just a poet, so it's not much. But I went down to Roanoke to Alex's tattoo. It's called Alex's Tattoo. Uh-huh. And I said, I'd like, it was one of the, I said, I need a tattoo. And so they're looking at me because I'm, I'm a 50-year-old woman at that point. And I was like, okay. Yeah. And what would you like for it to say, ma'am? I said, I wanted to say Thug Life. And he looked at me, he said, you don't look like a thug. Mm. And I said, I'm a thug. Yeah. And if you're killing thugs, shoot me. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I wanted a public tattoo. Yeah. Because I just wanted to say, stop this. Well, the New York Times, and I really don't know how, found out that I had a tattoo. I mean, it's not, And they called and said, well, can we photograph it? And I said, sure, it's not a problem. And so the Times put the tattoo in, and it kind of changed the discussion. I got a wonderful letter, which I framed, because I don't know his mother. I don't know Afeni Shakur either. But I got a wonderful letter from Afeni to thank me for standing up for her son. He's a great man.
Yeah.
And what I really want to see now, of course, is my Tupac stamp.
Yeah.
He needs to be on the stamp. Yeah, he's a great man, yeah.
Recently, the last 3 weeks, a dead young man named Trayvon Martin, he's been on trial. He's been on trial. How you feel about that?
Well, there's no question in my mind, I don't even know how to say that Mr. Zimmerman murdered Trayvon. And you don't run around carrying guns, jumping out of cars, jumping on kids. And actually, if it hadn't been for the outcry, the state of Florida was never even going to charge Mr. Zimmerman with that.
What does that say about America?
It says that my friend Jenny is here. And God knows, God bless Jenny.
She's so sweet. She helped make all this happen. Jenny did.
Jenny makes everything happen.
Dr. Jenny Fowler.
And so we need it. But as we were driving up to D.C., one of the things that I said, I was thinking about something, I said, it was a good idea. And she said, what was a good idea? And I said, America. I think it was a good idea that we the people, I think it was a good idea that we stand for things. But because I don't think it's there. I think we are so far... We're so in the other direction that... From what it's supposed to stand for. Yeah. And I'm trying not to become discouraged, because one of the things about the 60s, which actually, to me, runs from the murder of Emmett Till, if you want to look at it that way, to the death of Robert Kennedy, if you look at that as the 60s, is that this was one of the most hopeful, one of the greatest periods in American life. And I think that it's really, I'm really disappointed. I know I'm in D.C. and I know it's predominantly a black audience here, but I'm really disappointed, in Barack Obama.
If you look at
if
you look at my notes, if you were to look at my note, you would see the next name that I have is Barack Obama.
Oh. No, I'm really, because I don't think that the president of the United States is there. He's not there he's not a clerk. He's there to change the conversation. Right. And I think that he has miserably failed in changing the conversation and reminding America.
From what to what?
Reminding us his election has not proven anything. Yeah. And what we wanted is we want to change the conversation of who are we and what are we to do. We're still running around killing people. D.C. is actually ugly, and Mayor Gray is really nice. I like him. But if you look at the city, if you just go like northwest, we know you want to deal with southeast or something. Right. If you go northwest, all you see is barbed wire and things up so that people can't hurt somebody. How about not sending drones out to kill people?
Yes.
We're wasting, we were talking about money. He's talking about money. Money's not something I understand. I'm a poet. But
we have another member in the audience who doesn't count very well either.
Well, no, none of that. That's my girl. But we're spending so much money killing people.
Yeah.
And we don't have a domestic policy.
So the report came as I was driving here this morning. Yeah. There was a report, and as I said to the mayor, I'm active on Facebook. And I posted on Facebook and said, George Bush and Cheney and their senior officials deserve prison. The Iraq War, this is a very, very certified report. The U.S. companies have made $250 billion. Their cronies, their hand-picked friends and companies, $250 billion for the reconstruction of Iraq, and there's very, very, very little, very minimal to show for it. We're going to be back after these messages. Welcome back to this segment of the Rock Newman Show with special guest Nikki Giovanni. Today was proclaimed by Mayor Vincent Gray as Nikki Giovanni Day in Washington, D.C., Saturday, July the 13th, 2013, and something so extraordinarily deserving by our guest, Nikki Giovanni. Before we get into further the interview with Nikki in this segment, we have a special guest in the audience. Her name is Seung-Hui Cho. Seung-Hui Cho is a Native American. She is a poet, and she is the lead plaintiff. She was the lead plaintiff for many years in the struggle against Washington's football team to have it change its racist, disrespectful, genocidal nickname. It's long overdue. She's been in that battle for more than 20 years. She absolutely continues to bear the torch in that struggle. We're honored to have her. And from poet to poet, in case y'all don't know it, she wanted to share with Nikki Giovanni, Dr. Seung-Hui Cho.
Well, I'm so pleased to be here on Nikki Giovanni Day. How fabulous for all of us in Washington, D.C. You and I were on the same stage one time, a million years ago, as part of the literary kickoff event for International Women's Day, sometime in the early 70s. And I was looking for the program. Of course, I couldn't find it. So I was trying to remember what I remembered about that. There were 20 of us selected to read, 20 American women poets at Town Hall. And all I really remember, I remember being honored by the company and that it was a fabulous lineup. I couldn't remember who selected us. I couldn't remember why or anything about that. And it may be just that someone put it together and said, we need one of these, one of those, one of those, as so often happens. And what I remember is that the two poetry goddesses on the stage were you and Alice Walker. And it was just a fabulous feeling. And I wanted to come here to tell you how much you have meant in my life, which means to my corner of the Native American movement since the 60s in various areas, whether it's sacred places protection or the reclamation of our cultural history, the reclamation of our actual history, the writing of it right, sometimes that you get to do in law and in poetry, and sometimes just in speechifying. And how inspired I have been by your example, not only in the way you live your life, but in the words that you give us, in the ideas that you give us, that you're always teaching. And every so often, I'll just check in and say, what is Nikki Giovanni saying these days? What is she thinking about these days? And I'm so comforted by that. And I just wanted to let you know that you touch the heart and the mind and the spirit of so many people that you may not even know you're influencing, but you have certainly influenced me, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity to say how much I love you as a woman of goodwill and as a woman of love and joy.
Thank you so much. That's lovely.
Dr. Seung-Hui Cho, continuing the good fight. Nikki, Miss Thelma and Aunt Catherine and Miss Lola and Miss Annie and my mama, they used to get together and make quilts. I'm hearing something real crazy in my ear right now that I don't need to be hearing. They made quilts, and you talk about quilts. I love quilts to this day. I have a quilt that is frayed from every corner, the center, and everything else. But Miss Thelma, Miss Lola, Aunt Catherine, Miss Annie, and my mama made that quilt, and I'm gonna have that quilt until I die, at least a piece of it.
Yeah.
Talk to me about quilts.
Oh, well, when I was expecting Thomas, actually, when I was expecting my only child, and one of the things, you know how you don't. I'm a logical individual. So when you're expecting a child, you say to yourself, okay, what do I need to know? I knew that I needed to know how to bake because all the mothers that I knew baked. My grandmother baked, so it's like I must learn to bake bread. I cannot make rolls to this day, but I can bake bread. So my bread is really nice with the butter. And I knew that I would need to know how to quilt because everybody in my family had passed a quilt down. And I had a piece, which I still do, by the way, of my grandmother's tablecloth. Yeah. So I said, oh, I need to quilt because I've got this kid coming. I thought it was a girl, actually, because so many girls in the family, I was surprised it was a boy. What I did, though, Rock, was it's so stupid. I forgot that, of course, when you quilt from the middle back, right? So I laid it out, and I had all of these scraps from all of these things, but I started on the corners. So when I got to the middle, I have this bunch, right? And to be honest, I looked at it, and I said, now I can undo all of that, or I could go get a pair of scissors and cut it, which is what I did. And then I sewed it down. So, because I knew that one day, if you're going to be a mother, you know that one day you'll be a grandmother. And if you're going to be a grandmother, then your and again, I was always thinking daughter, would need the quilt that her grandmother made. So I did that. I made it, and I gave it to Thomas, actually. And he does have a daughter. Her name is Kai. So, you want to pass these quilts, because quilts mean, but as I said in a poem in Cotton Candy and Rainy, quilts are the way our lives are lived. I mean, if you think about it, we are just a quilt. We are pieces and patches of everybody that keeps us warm. That's what we are. Our lives is a quilt.
Does a poet remember all of their poems all the time?
I don't. I know what I wrote and what I didn't. Let me share something with Suzanne for a minute, though.
Please. Speaking
of being that whole sister of the thing, today is Nikki Giovanni Day in D.C., and that's really wonderful. I'm pleased. But I remember the first time in Harlem, someone just gave me the last call, but there used to be another, and so I was voted Sister of the Week. And I used to have a little Volkswagen, 1960 Volkswagen, the one, before they, and so Harlem, you always double park. So I was double parked going to Miss Cho's bookstore. I don't know if you remember.
Absolutely.
Miss Cho, and I'm double parked, and the police officer came along, and he's getting ready to write me a ticket. And I said, excuse me, sir. He says, it's my car. He said, yeah, you're almost practically triple parked. I said, you can't ticket me today. He said, why not? I said, I'm Sister of the Week. He said, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I just thought he'd get a kick out of that.
I forgot to feed the meter for this show. So if the guy is out there, tell him I'm interviewing Nikki Giovanni, and today is Nikki Giovanni Day, so don't give me that ticket, okay? If I'm quoting you correctly, you said something to the effect of poetry is the mom and daddy of hip-hop.
Oh, yeah, we are.
Tell me about that.
Oh, actually, and somebody's got my book here, Hip Hop Speaks to Children, which I'm thrilled about. What I was trying to do, if I could illustrate, which I don't, I would start with a railroad track right here, and I would lay it, and this would be spirituals, and I would lay the track all the way to hip-hop. It's very important. If we take this as the spirituals, and then we're going to go back. The spirituals are vernacular, and vernaculars are incredibly important to you and me, to the people. And if we take the vernacular and we just roll it back a couple of hundred years, we've got opera. So what I did was actually try to show how opera, without, belaboring it, how opera has evolved, because the people have to talk about what they were interested in. The people are interested in sex and gossip. I mean, that's usually what. So if you look at opera, that's what you're talking about. Who's screwing who and why, right? And who doesn't like and who's going to get shot or something like that. But
they weren't monogamous neither.
Oh, no. But as we come into slavery, what should have been operatic, we could not stage Am I making sense?
Yes.
And so we had to find a way, though, to say this is what we are seeing and what we are going through. These are our concerns. And the people still had to have a voice. And our voice became the spirituals. So we actually have like 124 original, and then all of the rest of them were variations on that thing. So the people could speak. Now, a lot of times people look at the spirituals as if it were, and Du Bois said that, and he was wrong. And I attended Fisk University. I love Du Bois. But they were not sorrow songs. They were life songs. Because you still always have to remember, I got a crown up in the heavens. Ain't that good news? They were always going to be, there were songs, you know, sometimes I feel like a motherless child. But the operative word there is sometimes. Because sometimes I don't.
Right.
And what was important is that these people who we are, these enslaved people, these were great people, and they found a way to share their story. They found a way to pass it along. And we have tried to silence the hip-hop generation. We tried to tell them that, you know, they're wrong, they don't know what they're doing. These are great men and women. And actually, my literary son is sitting in the audience here, Kwame Alexander, whom I love so much. And I gotta give a shout out to Kwame. Yeah. These young people are finding, they are using us to find their voice, to do their voice. And hip-hop is a part of it. Hip-hop is important. Everybody was angry, oh, they use bad language. I know I'm on the radio, so I can't say some of the things that I would know. But nonetheless, you can't. I mean, what is bad language? Bad language is drone. Drone is probably the worst language I know.
Right.
Bad language is, I'm going to accept a Pulitzer Prize for peace, and then I'm going to send 30,000 people off to be killed. That's bad language.
Well, yeah. Now, hip-hop, do you differentiate hip-hop and gangster rap?
No, because what they want to do is separate it. They want to make it like, oh, okay, this part is good because they're just talking about screwing women, but that part is bad because they're talking about what you are doing to us. NWA is important, you know. I mean, come on, the kids are important, and they have not just the right but the responsibility. You know, and again, as an older black woman who never really aspired to riches, so I don't have that problem. I love to see the Jay-Z's of this world, the Sean, you know, see Puffy and them. They're making money. We're not going to have you know, a benefit.
A retirement party
to bury them.
Right.
You know,
Right.
Bing Crosby, and there's nothing wrong with that, but Bing Crosby buried Louis Armstrong, who is the voice of America, who's made.
Right.
He couldn't bury himself because he was cheated. And that's true.
Yeah.
But these young men and women now.
Joe Louis, right here.
Joe
We were a
Louis.
part of it. We wanted to member out here in the audience was very much a part of Joe Louis being buried here. And
Well, you see what Queen
his
Latifah
sad
and them,
days,
and of course the Queen, she's so wonderful. They are not going to, they don't have to worry when they get to be 60 how they're going to eat. So I love the kids because they learn from us. And I think that we were good people. And I think that it was important that we did what we did selflessly. But I think it's also good that they are good businessmen and women.
Yes.
And that they are taking care of themselves and they're building a new world.
You are a lung cancer survivor. Were you afraid?
I think anybody that hears the word, you have cancer, if you're not afraid, you know, you haven't had enough to drink or something. But yes, I mean, of course. And I sincerely thought, well, I'm going to do everything in my power. I had a doctor and I fired him, and you must learn, any of you, you must fire doctors, you know, because, you know, you don't know where he graduated in the class. He could have been the last guy there, you know, what the hell, he's stupid. But my doctor said, he said at that point, you know, well, you know, you're going to probably be dead by June. And so that was like, am I paying you?
And this was when?
Oh, it was right after I was diagnosed. I think I was diagnosed, and I should remember, like late January, February.
Of?
Oh, this has been 13 years ago, 14 years ago.
Come on now.
Yeah. So you saw what I had to do. I had to look at Jenny because she.
That's right, Jenny. No.
Jenny, how long have I been alive?
Sure.
But So I went on, my attorney is Gloria Haffer, and she's in Cincinnati where I grew up. And so we called, of course, Gloria, let me start with, and I haven't written about that, so that's all a part of what, but the main thing is, okay, I have cancer, so deal with it. You have cancer, Nikki. What needs to happen? I needed to turn everything over. Yeah. So I turned over the business to Gloria. I turned over my personal calendar to Jenny, because I knew I couldn't handle any of that. Yeah. And a lot of times people want to micromanage, but all I was going to be able to do is get well, if getting well was possible.
Try to manage staying alive.
And if I did not stay alive, somebody had to handle it. So I've been very fortunate that the two people, actually three people, but Steve is now passed, my accountant, Steve. I saw that Erica, not Erica, the other one.
Lauren Hill?
Lauren went to jail on taxes.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I mean,
and these corporate bastards just made $250 billion, and no one went to jail. And there's nothing to show for it. We got a lot to show when we come back. After this break, we'll continue with Nikki Giovanni. My name is Rock Newman. Our special guest in this last hour of the Rock Newman Show here at Busboys and Poets, 14th and V Street, Northwest Washington, D.C., is the highly esteemed Nikki Giovanni. And what's most important is that Nikki Giovanni has agreed to do what Nikki Giovanni do. She's going to do some poetry on the Rock Newman Show at Busboys and Poets. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, you had asked me, we started this whole conversation about love.
Yeah.
And all poets write love poems.
Yeah.
There is a big difference between old women and young women.
Okay.
Okay? This is an old woman's love poem, which I love.
I'm waiting.
I would like to see you cooking. I would like for you to cook for me. I would like to see you decide upon a menu, go to the market and pick the fruit, the vegetables, the fish. I would like to see you smell the fish, test the flesh for firmness and freshness. I would like to watch you in the bakery by the dinner rolls, deciding rolls or custy bread. I would like to watch you run back to get the goat butter. I would like to be sitting in the corner and you, intent upon your meal, not noticing me when you go to the wine store. I would watch you wrestle with red or white. White, of course, because it's fish, but red is seductive. Whoever fell in love over a glass of white wine? I, uncharacteristically on time, would like you to greet me in a butcher's apron. I would like to watch you greet me only in an apron. You would ask me to undress for you. Before I sit down at the beautiful table, before you hand me my glass, you would ask me to undress. I would like to watch you watch me undressing for you. I would like to watch the movement inside the apron as I undress for you. I would like to watch you stroll to your closet, where you bring out your old buffalo plaid dressing gown, your pillowed, much-washed dressing gown that smells like you after you brush your teeth, after you shower, after you comb your hair. I would like to embrace your odor, your essence, as we sit down to eat. I would like very much for you to cook for me. I would like that.
Can I kiss you again? Now, I do need to announce, my wife loves you as much as I do. So that's both of us kissing you.
All right, that works.
You say that works? How beautiful.
I love that poem.
Are your poems like children? As in, you can't say you love one more than the other?
It's unwise to say what you prefer, because you end up arguing with yourself. Somebody will say, well, I really like that. And you say, well, no, because I know I messed up on that line or something like that. Yeah. That's called Still Life with Apron. I really like that poem because it's not a poem I could have written 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It is a grown-up woman's poem.
Right.
And I like the vulnerability of that poem.
Yeah.
Because the one thing grown women don't do, and we have mostly the women I'm looking at are young, but the older women, we're worried about our bodies. And so undressing for someone
Right.
is a real vulnerability. It's a real love.
Right.
That you actually, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because young women have flat stomachs and things, and we don't. We're a little flabby here or there. And so, and men too.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think one of the hardest things for men is to see a man without an erection. Because they just don't let that happen. You know, it's like, you know, no. And, you know, but because it takes a vulnerability to say, this is me. Do you know what I mean? And so love changes, but I like that. I like that poem a lot.
So you can't say that one poem is your favorite.
I probably can, but I won't.
And I respect that. Can you tell me why you won't, though?
Because it disadvantages. Because I like things for one reason. People, you write for one reason, and it is received for another. And you don't want to find yourself arguing with yourself. And you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. You know, that's why singers will say, I like this song, but they'll never say, this is absolutely my favorite. The rest of them we don't. Because you like a song because of what it means to you.
Let me ask you about this. Several months ago, Barack Obama was talking about the Attorney General from California. She's a Howard grad. And he talked about her being the best looking Attorney General that California had ever had. And, you know, people skewered him for, quote unquote, objectifying her. Now, for the art that I've seen from time memorial, women have been objectified, rightly or wrongly. And I want to ask you, is that right or wrong?
Oh, I'm sorry to say I don't remember that, but if she was good looking, she's probably best looking in California, so good for her. I think that sometimes people probably take it too seriously. He was probably, I mean, he is still a guy.
Yeah, right.
You know, I don't know what Michelle allows him to do, but I know that he's still a guy.
I heard the following day when he went on a basketball court, he didn't play very well because he had some bruised ribs. And Michelle, you know, she got those big, strong arms.
You know, we all look, the poem that I just read, we all look at, because we objectify, probably the most objectified human being on earth is a black male.
Yeah.
And the black male's body is constantly under siege. Yeah. Everybody's looking at him for one reason or another.
Yeah.
And some because we want them, some because we don't. So, I mean, but I think if I were a black male, I'd always be worried. Yeah, I saw a kid really just had great abs. You know, and it's one of those things you're looking at. He's just walking down the street without his shirt, and I was like, wow, I wish I was 50 years younger. But, you know, you do. You just look at, you know, I don't think women's bodies are nearly as objectified. And I'm speaking as a mother of a son, because one of the things I did not want anybody to say to my son, certainly not my mother's friend, I didn't want people to tell him how he's a good-looking kid.
Right.
He could see that, and so could I, but I didn't like it. My mother had a friend, and she would always say, you know, to him, what pretty eyes he has. Yeah. Well, I was a kid that always wanted to be smart, so I tell him that he's intelligent, because he is. He's an attorney, he does okay. Right. He went to Georgetown Law. Right. But I didn't want somebody dealing with my son that way.
Right.
He's a human being. But I think if I were a black male, well, I don't think that. Clearly, the most objectified body on earth is the black American male. I don't think there's any question.
I was engaged to a lady, and she had several sisters. Her grandmother told her mother repeatedly, stop having all those kids. They were all the kids were about your color. And she told her stop having all those kids because she was going to have a dark one. And she did. And the grandmother and the mother from an early time in her life would refer to her as ugly and black. Yeah. And she told me that until she was maybe 10 years old, she wouldn't look sideways in the mirror. One day she was in the store trying on a dress, and it was a three-way mirror. And she saw the side of her face and realized that the side of her face wasn't any darker than the front part of her face, because she knew her side of her face must have been darker than the front side because of how her grandmother and mother abused her.
Yeah.
What's our problem with color?
I have no idea, but I know you need to get rid of that grandmother and that mother right away. And I know that whatever she is, what she needs is a woman. She needs a friend who is going to look at her and is going to do things with her and is going to embrace her. Men can't do it because it's going to be about sex. Mm-hmm. She needs a girlfriend.
Right.
But I said a woman because a girlfriend is like she needs somebody grown. Am I making no.
So I have a question. That certainly begs the question. Can men and women be just friends?
I don't see why not. Mm-hmm. And especially today, because one of the things that we've been talking sex, this whole thing, as you know.
Mm-hmm. And kiss twice.
And kiss twice. But one of the things that we now no longer have to deal with in many respects is our sexuality. Because you actually can screw whoever you want to. That's one thing my generation did for the world. Uh-huh. We did.
Uh-huh. And meaning that whether you're homosexual or not means a lot less now.
It's all sex. Uh-huh. And so it should all be good. Uh-huh. And that's all we're dealing with today. So you can embrace each other as friends without having to prove something. Right. And I think it's sad because you still see some people trying to deal with, I want people to think of me this way. You know, nobody really cares. Right. It's over. Mm-hmm. And I was really pleased with the Supreme Court because if there's anything, they needed to do that. You know, why anybody's crazy enough to get married ought to be allowed to.
Yeah.
It's a tough situation.
Does that mean that at 70 years old, Nikki Giovanni has lived a life and learned the lessons that would discourage folks from getting married now?
No, I think probably now is a good time to get married. Mm-hmm. I think, you get to be 60 or 70, you've done everything you're going to, but we were talking about it earlier. You've now exhausted all your foolish possibilities, and so you can make a decision about how you want to spend your life. And I think that's important. So remember the movie Gigi? Louis Jordan and Leslie Caron?
Sorry, I didn't see it.
You probably didn't. It's silly. I like musicals. But in Gigi, the madam says to Gigi, we don't get married, dear, at first. We get married at last. And I always was enchanted by that. And it seemed that if you were going to marry, now would be a good time. Because you're retiring. I mean, I'm nearing retirement. I've been doing some really fun projects, so I don't want to particularly not have my job because I'm enjoying it. Right. I agreed with the mayor. I was listening to the mayor. Like, yeah, I know that's a great feeling. Yeah. But in terms of what you're doing with your life now, you're in control of your life. You've had your kids. The house is paid for. You're riding in the car you want to drive, or some of us have, of course, a Phantom, and the rest of us don't. But I bought you some gifts.
Let me ask. Before we wrap up this segment, we've got 4 minutes.
Okay.
Can you take us to Virginia Tech on that horrific day?
No.
Don't want to go?
No, it's not something that I'm. First of all, I'm having a good time. I want to sit here and start crying, and it was horrible. And I know people want to say that he was crazy, but I always thought I taught him. I thought he was evil. And that's not a term that you get to use a lot because people think, nobody's evil. Everybody just has a problem. But I thought he was evil. Right. And I had said to my department head, I'm going to, either you get him out of my class or I'm going to resign. And she didn't believe me, Lucinda Roy. Lucinda didn't believe me. And she was like, well, you're not. I said, Lucinda, on Thursday, either he's out of my class or my resignation is on you. Because I wasn't going to. And lead us not. I mean, evil. It does something different. I've had crazy students.
Yeah.
I've had students that have come back from war. They've had problems. I taught a couple of Tourette. I've taught people that had problems.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of problems. I've taught alcoholics. My father was one, so I've lived with, Yeah. He was evil. And that's the only person that I ever said, he's got to, we're not going to exist in the same space. And she did finally realize, he didn't realize it either, I think, that I was serious. Because when I said that, I don't have private conversations, by the way, with students.
Yeah.
And so I'm in class and I'm saying, Mr. Cho, we're not working. I'm not able to teach you and you're disrupting my class. So one of us, one of us has to go.
Right.
And he said, I'm happy here. I don't want to come out of the class. I said, well, let me put it another way. This is not column A and column B. Either you're going to leave or I'm going to resign.
Right.
And he said, oh, you won't resign. I said, oh, sir, you don't know me at all.
Hello.
Because I'm gone.
Yeah.
And of course, they got him out of my class. But I think that it's funny to me, if I can offend everybody, it's funny to me that the church has gotten involved in everything except the concept of good and evil.
Yeah.
We have not gotten, they're in your business,
Yeah.
And nobody wants to admit that evil does it. You cannot believe in good, and I do. I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
I believe in good. You can't believe in good unless you understand that there is evil.
Right.
And evil is to be resisted and overcome. But it also has to be identified. And just because I don't do or want to do what some people do and want to do doesn't make it evil.
Right.
It makes it not my choice.
Right.
But there are other things, and dealing with Mr. Cho, because the proof of that pudding was in the eating, as it were. You knew something was really wrong, and nobody listens to you when you say things like that.
Right.
Somehow or another, it's like Nikki's being strange or whatever,
Yeah.
and then it worked out. Unfortunately, it became what it was, and it has tainted. I think a wonderful school. I don't think that we're being, it's not a tar baby, but there has to be more. And I'm glad you brought this up because in the second half, I have gifts for you.
Thank you.
I do, and I want to talk about them. So I don't think I've talked 4 minutes, but I think I should let you do what you have to do so that I can come back to that.
Okay.
And now, the Rock Newman Show.
Thanks again to Andy Shalal, the visionary of Busboys and Poets. It's growing all over this metropolitan area and soon will grow out into the world, as it should. The mission, the tribe statement is changing the world, one person and one day at a time. Before we get back to the questioning and conversation with Nikki Giovanni, I want to introduce another special guest presenter. His name is Joe Gorham. He's been a fixture with WHUR, Howard University Radio, in this community for many, many years. And Joe's developed a program called The Spoken Word. And if you turn it on at midnight, you'll just hear the coolest, hippest dude on the radio. Again, his name is Joe Gorham. Joe, welcome to the Rock Newman Show.
Thank you, Rock. Miss Giovanni, I have loved you since Soul. And those of us that are old enough to remember a show on WDCA, I think it was, with Oscar Brown Jr., there was a show called Soul, and the first time I ever came in contact with Nikki Giovanni was on that show. And you changed poetry for me. You made me enjoy poetry because back in the day of elementary school, to hear Du Bois, actually not to hear, but to read it, it was foreign to me. Even though we speak it, that was foreign to me. So I did not catch on. I didn't want to learn about Caucasian poets or anything like that. So when you came along, Sonia came along, Gil Scott-Heron came along, that made a difference for me. Somewhere along the line, I guess when they boycotted Gil Scott-Heron and he couldn't be on the radio anymore, then I lost that. But when Jill Scott came back, I started seeing that poetry was still alive and well. So I decided to do a show on WHUR. Didn't know if it was going to work, but we called it Spoken Word at Joe's Place. And thank you for coming on that show. And you were one of my, I guess, you were one of my, on my wish list. So my wish list is complete because I got you, I got Sonia, and I think I was doing pretty good. I was batting 1,000 at that point in time, so I just didn't want to leave that alone. I remember, and I quote a story that you told me about Michael Vick, and about people always talked about why he left school so early. And you told him going to school is about making money. And he went out and made the money, you know, and I appreciate that story. I appreciate the story you shared with me about Venus and Serena, you know, and how people were saying that their father was pimping them, and he wasn't, you know. Folks just need to get into the story when they hear things a little bit more and appreciate what's really going on and not what the media tells them is happening. You as a poet, you did a poem on my show about a leaf. Now, I don't know if you remember it or not. It was about a leaf that fell off the tree and the car hit it. Or you were driving in someplace in Virginia. I don't know. Like you said, you don't remember some of your poems, but it was about a leaf. And I thought that was very interesting that poetry can get to the point where you can really write about anything. Because a leaf, only you could think about writing about the plight of a leaf. And I appreciate that. I appreciate you being on my show. And happy Nikki Giovanni Day.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
God bless you, Joe Gore.
Thank you.
Nikki.
No, I'm a big Aretha fan. I've written, you said that, but I've actually written 3 major pieces on Aretha because she was the voice of our generation in terms of carrying that voice forward. She did it, and so I've been a big fan. I got to see her a couple of years ago because it's been about 2 years, because Althea Gibson had her 50th anniversary. And, you know, some of the most wonderful, among the many, but truly 2 of my favorite human beings that I don't know very well are Serena and Venus Williams. They are just great girls. And they hosted with Billie Jean King the 50th anniversary of Althea Gibson. And so it was the first because Althea was the first. And so all of the first came and I got invited. I was just like thrilled, you know, and I got dressed up as one of those like, ooh, I get to get with the big girls and get my picture made. And oh, you know, you got to say hello. And of course, Aretha does that thing, you know, Aretha is like, you know, the queen, you know. And so she says, hi, Nikki. And I was like, oh. Because I'm such a fan. I'm still. I mean, she's a great girl. I'm so
Venus
pleased
and
with her.
Serena. Their chef is in the room tonight.
Really?
Is in the room today.
Oh, right.
That's her right up there.
Oh.
That's her chef.
Yeah.
I'd like to give you 3 names
Okay.
and have you speak. Maya Angelou.
Oh, Maya's my friend. And you know, she only lives 2 hours from me. Okay. And so she lives in Winston-Salem. I'm in Blacksburg there.
Yeah.
And when Toni Morrison's son Slade died, I drove down because I hadn't seen my, you know, you just get busy. Mm-hmm. And so I drove down to say, Maya, we should do something. And so she said, yes, we should. And we decided to have a celebration of Toni, which we did. But once I got into the habit, you know, we were laughing with Andy, I like to drive.
Okay.
And so once I started getting the habit, because I was going down, like I was going to see Toni every 3rd week because I was holding a coalition together and going to see Maya about every other week, you know. And so we've gotten into the habit of driving down, and I just go down and she has, Miss Chris makes the best fried chicken in the world. So I'm always saying like, oh, what's for dinner? Because, you know, she's got this big house, and so, you know, you're always being
And when
welcome.
you said Miss Chris, is that a nickname you have for?
No, that's Miss Chris. She, you know, Maya it doesn't cook. She has an electric, what do you call it, gas stove,
Right.
but she has oxygen. So she actually sits like here and directs. It's the funniest thing because she'll say, I think you need a little more salt there. And 90% of the time she's right, you know. A drop of vinegar, please, you know. And they bring it back there. It's so much fun. I mean, being in her company is so
What more
great.
can you say, you know, when you really say with sincerity that someone's your friend? What greater testament can you give to
You
them?
can't, yeah.
Okay.
She's a great girl.
Clarence Thomas.
Oh. Next.
Gentleman born in Louisville, Kentucky, had the name Cassius Clay. This is the legend of Cassius Clay, the most beautiful fighter of the world today. He talks a great deal and brags indeed of a muscular punch that's incredibly speedy. The fistic world was dull and weary. With a champ like Liston, things had to be dreary. Then someone with color, someone with dash, brought fight fans a running with cash. The brass young boxer is something to see, and the heavyweight championship is his destiny. The kid fights great. He's got speed and endurance. If you sign to fight him, you better raise your insurance. Oh, rumble, young man, rumble. Talk to me, please, about Muhammad Ali.
Oh, God. Again, he's my friend. And people forget, or whatever it is we do with history, but when they took his championship, his belt from him, he had to earn a living.
Yeah.
And what he decided to do, because he spoke, you know, and Richard Fulton was his agent at that point.
Yeah.
And so Richard said to me, would you like to go on tour with Ali? And I said, are you kidding? And of course. So Ali, though, at that point didn't fly. So he would take the bus, and we would go to Columbus or Cleveland, you know, and I would meet him, right?
Yeah.
His wife, both of his wives liked me because they always felt he was safe with me. Because, you know, he was a bit of a...
He was.
And so they were always like, you're looking out for him, aren't you, Nick? And I'm like, yeah, I'm looking out for him. But we toured together. I look at Ali every day because one of my favorite photos is in my bedroom. It sits like, it's stacked. There's a photo, and I was 27 or 28. So you know what, we both, I mean, we were beautiful.
Yeah.
And
yes.
That's true. And I look at it every day because he was showing me something. And it's just a photo that actually someone sent to me. So I've only had it now for like 3 years. But it's so wonderful because I see Ali every day. He's such a great man. He's such a great man. Yeah. And traveling with him was a lot of fun. So I was a little disappointed in one of the books, what's his name's book, because it was like he just wiped me out. That whole period didn't exist. You know, he ended up doing the Great White Hope in New York and stuff. But you have to, the poetry is what got him between. It was the poetry. And again, you know, we were talking about hip-hop, and we're talking, but see, all of that, Ali was a big influence on all of that and on what you can do. And they just want to kind of take Ali out of it, and you can't. You have to come back to, one, he's a stand-up guy, and he was, I mean, we were all, everybody, and to say in love is not, you know, but we were all in love with him. And of course, Toni Morrison, speaking of Toni, Toni was just like, oh my God, you know, she's the one that did that. And she was like, oh, have you seen him? Have you seen him? Because he's a beautiful man. And it was just, and of course, he's a great storyteller. So it was really fun. And, you know, we'd all talk about it. He's wonderful.
Whatever extent I've had any successes, it is in part breathing his spirit. Very, very much. I mean, I idolized and worshiped him and took his message into myself. And he had that kind of impact. When I looked at the movie where Will Smith was playing Ali, and I'll tell you what I think. I think that Will Smith did as wonderful of a job as any actor could have done trying to capture Ali. But no one could capture Ali. The energy and the spirit, and you've used the word a couple of different times, his absolute physical beauty. This man was a talking about objectifying, this man
gorgeous.
Was a gorgeous man.
Yeah.
And I'm aware of some just tales about, you know, I mean, just how women were trying to get
Everybody.
with Muhammad Ali.
Everybody.
And the interesting, it's
No, I mean,
yeah.
no,
yeah, uh-huh.
he attracted as many men as women. He could handle it. And however he wanted to. This is not, but I'm just saying, no, Ali was attractive to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was a part of what he had to deal with. But he was perfectly capable. I didn't like the script. I didn't think that it showed the complexity. And I think that if you're going to show Malcolm X, who was an incredibly beautiful man, you talk about gorgeous.
Yeah.
You talk about just saliva. I mean, no, Big Red was beautiful.
Yeah.
And if you're going to show those two men, then let's see the complexity. Yeah. Because the complexity of you have two giants who are going to make such an impact on the world. This is not a 90-minute movie, a 2-hour movie. This is, why is it that we get The Godfather, and it's 4 hours, and then we get The Godfather Part 2, and that's another 4 hours, and we can't get that same epic film on what black men have done? Yeah. Because Malcolm and Ali were friends. And the friendship also had a lot to do with how the world looked. Yeah. There were differences that were not superficial. I thought it just made it so superficial that if you were seeing that, it just looked like two foolish men. Right. But then if you saw Malcolm X, and I'm not picking on Spike today either, but that was a superficial film because you had Elijah Muhammad was a great man. Right. And no matter how you look at it, no matter what, I'm a Christian, doesn't matter, whatever you are, Elijah was a great man. Yeah. And what he did has not been replicated.
Right.
So we can't just say, and then all of a sudden, Malcolm woke up one morning, scratched his balls, and said, "I'm mad at the messenger." Yeah. It's just not the way that works. Right. And so, did you see what I'm saying? There's a complication that needs to be explored when great men clash, because any clash of titans is always going to create. I mean, we've got Roman and Greek mythology talking about the clash of titans. These men were titans, and we cannot reduce them to, they fell out.
Right, absolutely.
So it upset me. Both of those films didn't suit me.
Why don't we see a film, an epic, of what black men have accomplished?
I think we will see that as we in the black community are, and I'm not being Pollyanna-ish about it, but we are coming into our own. America is no longer a white nation, which they know no matter how much they're bitching and moaning about it. And we are watching the rise of men and women of color, and hopefully they don't get crazy, so we have to, I really shouldn't have to say and women, but we have to make sure that we're being inclusive as we move along. Right. But I think that we will. I think that it's a great story, and we are now building a generation that is building the resources to begin to be able to do that on our own, that you don't need Hollywood. And, we're sitting here, we're streaming, and we're doing 800,000 other things, which is good, because we're now taking the media away from the hands of a few people to decide what we can see. Yeah. And I think that that's incredibly important.
And here on the Rock Newman Show, I could not be more pleased that the world today is seeing Nikki Giovanni sitting here at Busboys and Poets, kicking it with us. We'll be back in just a moment. Hard to believe that this is the last segment that we have. This time has absolutely flown by. Our special guest today, Nikki Giovanni, the book that sits on the desk here, Hip Hop Speaks to Children, something that's extraordinarily popular and the #1 seller at Busboys and Poets, as Andy Shalal mentioned earlier. We have our last tribute from the floor today, something very special from a very special person in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. She is a jazz singer, performer, radio talk host, disc jockey, if you will. She just does it all, and she is the voice of the quiet storm.
Yes, indeed.
Her name is Angela Stribling. Angela, I understand you want to do something for Miss Giovanni.
This is such a high honor, And I just appreciate everything that you've done. And I just pray, all of you pray for me that I do it justice. Ego tripping. I was born in the Congo. I walked to the Fertile Crescent and built the Sphinx. I designed a pyramid so tough that a star that only glows every 100 years falls into the center, giving divine, perfect light. I am bad. I sat on the throne, drinking nectar with Allah. I got hot and sent an ice age to Europe to cool my thirst. My oldest daughter is Nefertiti. The tears from my birth pains created the Nile. I am a beautiful woman. I gazed on the forest and burned out the Sahara Desert. With a packet of goat's meat and a change of clothes, I crossed it in 2 hours. I am a gazelle, so swift you can't catch me. For a birthday present, when he was 3, I gave my son, Hannibal, an elephant. He gave me Rome for Mother's Day. My strength flows ever on. My son, Noah, built new ark, and I stood proudly at the helm. As we sailed on a soft summer day, I turned myself into myself and was Jesus. Men intone my loving name, all praises, I am the one who would save. I sow diamonds in my backyard. My bowels deliver uranium. The filings from my fingernails are semi-precious jewels. On a trip north, I caught a cold and blew my nose, giving oil to the Arab world. I am so hip, even my errors are correct. I sailed west to reach east and had to round off the earth as I went. The hair from my head thinned, and gold was laid across 3 continents. I am so perfect, so divine, so ethereal, so surreal. I cannot be comprehended, except by my permission. I mean, I can fly like a bird in the sky.
Thank you so much, Angela. This is what you get on the Rock Newman Show, live from Busboys and Poets, y'all. Were you crazy when you made that, when you did that? Where in the world? How in the world? So you came through the 50s. You got into the 60s, height of Black Power. We talked about Muhammad Ali just a couple of moments ago. And that's, in essence, Muhammad Ali's twin, in a sense. Mm-hmm. I am the greatest. Mm-hmm. Ego tripping Nikki Giovanni.
We were a little bit ahead. This came out in 67.
This was 67.
Mm-hmm. But one of the things that intrigued me was that everybody was talking about an ego trip. You know, that was during the period that, oh, he's just on an ego trip. And I remember Huey Newton. You remember Huey?
Yeah.
Great man, too. And there was, oh, they're on an ego trip there. And I thought about it, and I thought of all of the trips available, because, you know, we were coming out of the beatnik period, right? Yeah. And so of all of the trips that were available, that's Timothy Leary and them were doing LSD, I thought ego has to be the best trip to be on. Uh-huh. And so I'm a history major in college, and so I was just trying to think of, if I were on an ego trip, why? Yeah. And of course, this poem came out, as I said, 67. But what was interesting is that, 10 years ago, we finally realized that there's 6 strands of DNA. All 6 reside in Africa. Mm-hmm. And so everybody actually is black, yeah. If you want to do that. And so, and you should. I mean, so when I was doing this, I was trying to think of, if I was going to create a world, what would I do?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to start with Africa, and I'm going to actually follow the footsteps of black women, and I just followed the footsteps of civilization, and so I'm a space person, so you know, I can fly. You know.
Yeah.
I love that poem so much. Thank you.
Yes, and I saw you come to Howard University in '72 when I was a student, and it really was the first time I became aware of that. And I have 5 granddaughters, and I just want them to listen to that all the time. I want them to listen to that all the time for what I think that it means, that it meant to me as a man, and what I hope it will mean to them as a woman. Because what we're talking about there is the God, is the God force,
Yeah.
is that all things are possible.
Exactly.
And that's a beautiful, beautiful piece of work.
Thank you.
I know you said you don't say what's your favorite. Was that what catapulted you? Because it got played on the radio. Folks might not know. That got played on the radio with a serious beat.
I bought you gifts because I knew this. I did it was an album then, it's a CD. It's as old as all get out. But it's now on CD. And in doing this, we did it on soul. Somebody was mentioning soul. And we did it on soul. And so it went, the career sort of built. And I think the best thing I did for my own sanity is not to deal with it. I was in Africa. I was in Ivory Coast. I went to cover the Biafran War. And I had gone to Nigeria, of course.
Right.
And I was coming back through Ivory Coast. But I didn't, you know, Nigeria and Ivory Coast did not have, relationships had broken off.
Okay.
So I came into Ivory Coast without a visa, which means I'm going to be under house arrest, which I was.
Oh, wow.
But as I was, if you got to be under house arrest, Ivory Coast in the 70s is the place to be.
Okay.
And so I'm walking across the tarmac, and a bunch of black women, and I want to give a shout out to my sorors here in Washington, D.C. Ooh.
DST.
All the way. And I'm walking across the tarmac, and a couple of the women, hey, girl, that ego tripping. And I'm like, what do they know about ego tripping? Because I went to Africa before this came out. So when I actually came back to the United States, all of a sudden, I'm like, you know, I've got this, I'm coming into JFK, and everybody is like, Victoria Lucas was my publicist, and we had to go into a room like I was important, you know, and it was like, tell us about it, because it was on the airways. You know, we were 19 months on the bestseller list.
Oh, I remember.
And so I had no idea that was happening because I had been away, which was good.
Right.
So again, it didn't get in my head. But I wanted you to have one of the original. I was saying earlier, and I did give this to you, the reason I love my job is that's my college president sitting right there. We called Ruby Dee, we called Novella Nelson, all of them just friends, and said, come down and read poetry with us. They did, and so that's one. And my good friend Joanne Gavin, and of course my good son there, Kwame, and all of them came down, and we did the Lucille Clifton reading. And so what I've been trying to do is put on film or on CD or make sure that we don't lose, because we've lost so much.
Yeah.
So very, very much of what we did in the 60s has lost. So I'm just working on trying to make sure that we have a record, so that when they say you all didn't do anything, somebody can put this in and find what we did.
Right. Well, these, I feel extraordinarily blessed by these gifts, and I love your kisses. Nelson Mandela, we are doing here at Busboys and Poets on Thursday, which is his birthday. If I can do a personal reflection for a moment, I managed a guy that was the heavyweight champion of the world, a boxer, Riddick Bowe, and he was going to fight a gentleman from South Africa who was the #1 ranked contender. In order for him to get a shot at Holyfield, who was the champion at the time, he had to fight him, and didn't have a lot of leverage yet because he wasn't the champion. But the thing that I insisted on doing, HBO and some of the other people involved were attempting to have the match sometime in June. Ratings are better in June than they are in July. But when I realized that this guy was a former police officer and a tool of the apartheid system, and I thought Bo was going to jack him up, I did everything I could, and we were successful in forcing that fight to be on Nelson Mandela's birthday, July the 18th, 1991. And Bo and our entire entourage came into the ring wearing the colors of the African National Congress.
All right.
And Bo beat him like he was his daddy. That's one of the reasons they called him Big Daddy. So we're doing a tribute here on Thursday night. Dignitaries, luminaries, and folks from the street are going to come in and just talk about Nelson Mandela here at Busboys and Poets. Your reflections.
Well, I think that's wonderful, but let me remind all of us, we can't do that without talking about Huey Newton and Stokely Carmichael. The black men did this.
Yeah.
And they laid a lot of ground. We can't do it without talking about Russell Means, the whole AIM movement.
Yeah.
So don't forget.
Yeah, and when you say Russell Means, it made me think about Dick Gregory.
Dick, and it's good.
Yeah.
And I'm a big Mandela fan. I mean, I'm happy, but we can't keep ignoring what black Americans have done. Mm-hmm. We just can't. And we can't ignore the American, because the American aim was so important to all of us. And I've been just so, again, disappointed that we didn't get pardons on that. I mean, Rap Brown being in prison is crazy. How can we talk about freedom and not mention Rap Brown? How can we talk about political prisoners and not mention Rap?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a political prisoner right now.
Right.
And so it's good. It's good what you're doing. Don't misunderstand me.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to, the people that dug the ditch there, everybody's drinking the water, but we have to deal with who dug the ditch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have time for another?
I do, and this is a love poem, because we've been doing love poems. I'm going to end, I just love it. Everybody, at my age, of course, everybody's married, so this is actually a married man's poem. Okay, but what the hell. I like boiled turnips, boiled potatoes, boiled rutabagas with butter and sea salt, but not every day. I like fried Virginia flounder, fried sand dabs, fried smelts, but usually only on Friday nights. I want drop biscuits, miniature Parker House rolls, extra thin white bread when I uncharacteristically make a sandwich. I like garlic straight off the vine, anchovies anytime, and good red wines, because I'm too old to drink cheap. I like to pound and grill my veal. I rub my beef in a special chili mixture. I really don't eat anyone else's ground meat. In other words, I'm normal. So this is the question. Why am I so enchanted with you?
I'm blushing. And I'm way enchanted with you. At some point, your spirit will depart this earthly realm. There'll be a transition. Oh, yeah. And there'll be a service of sorts, and there'll be a memorial more than likely.
Okay.
What do you want written about Nikki Giovanni?
None of that. That's what I wanted written about Nikki Giovanni. I already wrote it. And I think that it's up to whomever it might be. I was so thrilled that Sister Althea did that. And I'm so thrilled in Knoxville, Tennessee, that there's a plaque up at my grandparents' house. But I don't think that my job, if I had my way, see, nobody could inherit money. Because I think that once you're dead, you lose. Really, I just think it's insane. And we have billionaires giving to, and what, that doesn't make sense. And I don't think that I should have to do that. I think that my job is to, and I hope I've been useful.
Yeah.
I enjoy my life, and I hope that I've done good work. And if other people see that, I hope that they do what they do. But I don't think it's my job. I would imagine, though, if anybody that ever loves me, when I transition, I would imagine that the one thing that anyone who ever loved me would do is buy the most expensive bottle of wine they could and drink it because they know that I would love that and I would love to be there. So you have to, that's the African in me. You'd have to pour just a teeny tiny bit on the ground because, at $200 or $300 a bottle, you're not going to put a lot. But
So do you go into these next days, months, and years thinking positively?
oh my, yes. I'm unhappy with the political situation, something like that. But I'm still, Virginia Tech hasn't fired me yet. I've got projects that I'm working on. We're trying to, and I'm excited about that. We want Angela Davis to take our honors, our Presidential Global Scholars to Germany, because I can't think of anybody better for them to see through their eyes than Angela. Love to work with Angela. She's a great gal, and she was kind enough to come up for the Toni Morrison. So there are people that I want to do a thing with Dolly Parton because I'm an Appalachian, and so I'm really a big deal. I think of big programs, and they either work or they don't. And I'm old enough to have heard no. So you just keep trying to get it done, and there's some things that will get done. I want to take a group of writers, and I think we will get this done, down to Antarctica, because we haven't had any writers in Antarctica. We've had scientists down there, and we've had photographers, but no writers. And we need writers in Antarctica because it's a hostile environment, and we need to be able to imagine how we create a life. That's important because we're going to Mars.
Yeah.
We are going to Mars, no question about that. And we will reach, when we do, it's a hostile environment. A part of what human beings do that's so stupid is that we'll go up there and there'll be something moving,
Right.
And we will say, kill it, because we don't understand it, the same way that we say kill it on Earth.
Yeah.
So that has to stop. And so the writers need to go. Kwame's going with me. The writers need to go into Antarctica.
Let me do something. Ask you something impossible. I always say that the most important job on this earth is that of a mother. We have 50,000 deltas in Washington, D.C. as we speak.
Yes, we do.
Can you speak to womanhood and motherhood in 90 seconds?
No.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad. I always, one of my very favorite human beings was Lillian Bimbo, who was our president. And Lil was the last president that we had that came from the floor, because we changed it and then went to a committee. And I'm sorry about that. And one of the great human beings on earth was Gene Noble. And I think that Gene, who was also our president, is the understated historian, because without Gene Noble, Daisy Bates doesn't happen in the same way. And her support of the Little Rock Nine changed history. And a lot of people don't know who Jean is, Right. At one point, almost every woman in public life was a Delta. And because we've been generous to share it, but Barbara Jordan was a Delta, And so, so it's D.C. is very fortunate that we have chosen this wonderful city to share our 100th anniversary.
And all here with the Rock Newman Show are extraordinarily fortunate that we were blessed with your presence today. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Safe journey back home.